feeding and training program. So just a rerun of the housekeeping rules one last time. Let's all just make sure that this entire wooden boardwalk remains clear for the duration of the program, as well as our 3 emergency exits being the 2 staircases leading onto the boardwalk, as well as the ramp all the way on my right-hand side. And especially if we have any little ones in the front, just make sure that we're holding onto them nice and tight for the program so they don't run out to the boardwalk. Before I do start, I'd first like to acknowledge that we're all gathered here today on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, and that we thank them for taking care of our lands and waters from time out of mind. So my name is Zoe, and I'm an interpreter here at the Vancouver Aquarium, which means I get the amazing role of teaching all of you guys about the various animals that call the aquarium their home. Of course, today our subject is all about Steller sea lions, which you can find 3 of them in the habitat right behind me. Now, joined for us for this program is also going to be a few members of our amazing marine mammal trainer team. So could we please give them a huge round of applause? They're just getting ready in the back, but I do see Hannah and Claire first, and I'm sure we will be joined by a few other members as well. As we wait for them to show up, I'm going to be telling you a little bit more about Steller sea lions, why we train them and how, as well as how that training has been able to benefit us and just our general knowledge on Steller sea lions as a species. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is, why do we train these Steller sea lions? Now, there are a lot of different reasons as to why we would train, but I'm going to go over 3 main reasons, and you'll be able to see some of these reasons as the trainers join us for the program. But one of the first reasons as we train is going to be for their personal health care. So just like us humans, we go to the doctor and the dentist once in a while to get all of our body parts checked out. You know, the dentist will ask you to do things like open your mouth so they can check up on your teeth. The trainers can ask very similar, if not the same behaviors from the Steller sea lions. So once they're all ready, you can sometimes see the trainers ask the Steller sea lions to do something like opening their mouth so we can check on all of those beautiful teeth. You can also see the trainers ask them to do things like get up on the dock and lie down so they can check that they're physically healthy. We can also ask them to roll over so we can check their belly side, and also to lift a flipper or lift the other flipper to essentially make sure that they are healthy from the tips of their nose to the tips of their flippers and their tails. So very similar to us humans, and of course them participating in their own personal health care makes it a lot less stressful for these guys, and also makes our staff lives easier as well. And of course that also means that they're able to perform more complicated medical procedures with more ease as well. So things like x-rays or ultrasounds or blood draws, all of those things, the sea lions are actively and voluntarily completing all of those procedures. So of course it makes it a whole lot easier on both sides of the team. Funnily enough, we can also do things like weigh them. Kenai, who is out on the dock there, he is our big male Steller sea lion. He was actually weighed this morning, so he is around 614, give or take, kilograms. If y'all are wondering how large he is, it is a pretty popular question we get here. In the morning when we do weigh these guys, that little hut right there, that white wall does roll up and there's a scale behind it, and the Steller sea lions actively get on the scale by themselves, so the trainers don't have to do a whole lot of kind of pushing them to do that. So that is going to be the first reason as to why we train, for their personal health care. The second reason as to why we train is going to be for their physical exercise. So just like us humans, when we go to the gym or if we play any sports, we're making sure that we keep our body nice and active, and we're targeting certain muscle groups. If you look at these guys, especially before the program starts, you can see that they spend the majority of their time swimming around in the water. So they got a lot of powerful muscle groups that we want to make sure remain nice and active here at the aquarium. And of course, we can do that through training. So as we see the trainers begin to work, we can also see them ask for some high physical behaviors. So things like just as simple as jumping out onto the dock, that takes a lot of energy to help haul them out. Other things like breaches, which you might have seen with things like whales do it as well, but it's when they jump and bring most, if not all, of their bodies out of the water. Again, where they're using all of those powerful muscles to be able to bring their bodies out. You can also see some things like flipper stands. Steller sea lions primarily use those prominent large flippers to help propel them through the water. So you can see them working on those as well. So that is going to be the second reason as to why we train, for their physical exercise. There's some husbandry behavior happening there in the front. Now I'm going to move on to the third reason as to why we train these guys, and it is going to be for their mental enrichment. So, believe it or not, Steller sea lions are incredibly intelligent animals. Out in the oceans, they are constantly using their minds to do things like find food, maybe avoid bringing someone else's food, or just dealing with any environmental or external factors. So even if the Steller sea lions here at the aquarium don't have to worry about a lot of those problems here, we still want to make sure that we're keeping their minds nice and engaged. And of course, we are going to accomplish that through training. So by asking a variety of different behaviors from the Steller sea lions, we're able to keep their minds nice and engaged about thinking how to complete all of these behaviors. You can also see some more complicated behaviors such as multitasking behaviors. So this is when a Steller sea lion swims on their side and flaps one flipper up and down. That's kind of like the human equivalent of us rubbing our stomachs and patting our heads. Same kind of multitasking happening there. So those are going to be the three main reasons as to why we train these guys: for their physical health, their health care, and also for their mental enrichment. So, after learning about how and why we train these guys, you might be wondering, how in the world are you actually accomplishing this? And that is going to be with a concept that I'm sure a lot of you guys are already familiar with, especially if you have any pets of your own or even kids of your own, and that is going to be through positive reinforcement. So, this can be broken down into three main steps. The first step of positive reinforcement training is going to be the ask. So, the trainers will use a variety of different hand signals to communicate to the Steller sea lions about which behaviors to complete. So if you haven't looked out for it already, you can try and spot one of our trainers out in the front here and see all of the different hand signals they're using and see what that corresponds to with the sea lion's behavior. So that is going to be the first step, the ask. The second step is going to be the bridge. Now, just like a bridge in real life, it is connecting point A to point B. It is the connecting step. Here, our trainers are using what we call a verbal bridge, and that is the word good. So the trainers will shout good at the Steller sea lions to let them know that they have completed the correct behavior that was being asked of them. And of course, this verbal bridge leads into the last and final step of positive reinforcement training, which is going to be the reward. Now, I'm gonna count to 3, and on the count of 3, I want all of you guys to shout out what you think a good reward for a Steller sea lion is, all right? 1, 2, 3.
Fish!
Fish, exactly. Not quite ice cream. Yes, fish, and I'm sure you've seen that these trainers are holding buckets worth of all of these fish. Now, these Steller sea lions eat a lot of fish every single day, and it provides the trainers with plenty of opportunities to continue training them and maintaining that relationship they have between them and the animals. Because trust is always the first foundational step to things like this. Now, sometimes the Steller sea lions might not be feeling like completing the behavior being asked of them, and that is totally okay. The trainers will simply move on to a different behavior to continue maintaining that trust. However, sometimes Steller sea lions are just feeling like having an off day overall. They don't feel like participating in any training, and that is also totally okay. They're still going to be offered their full buckets worth of food, regardless of that participation or not. Now, of course, training can help us better take care of our animals here, but in turn, these guys have actually been able to teach us a lot more about their species through training as well. And there are two populations of Steller sea lions out in the oceans. There is the eastern population, which includes here in BC. The western one is found up in the Gulf of Alaska. Now, something was happening to the western population because since the 1980s, in about half of a human lifetime, 80% of Steller sea lions from the western population disappeared. And that's 8 out of every 10 sea lions. If 8 out of every 10 of y'all disappeared from the audience today, there would not be a lot of you guys left for this program. And this was pretty strange. So scientists and researchers from UBC decided to partner up with the Vancouver Aquarium to figure out what was happening to the western population. And so it was the job of a few scientists and researchers to go out there and collect Steller sea lion scat samples. And for all of my friends who don't know what scat is, it basically means poop. So, although this was not the most pleasant job out on the market, it was undoubtedly one of the most important ones. Because through collecting all of these poop samples, we were able to figure out what these guys were eating. We had figured out that they were switching their diets from high fatty fish like herring to low fat fish like walleye pollock and Attica mackerel. Now, this was pretty strange because Steller sea lions don't just choose to switch up their diets like us humans do. It's because something else was causing it. And that happened to be another predator out there who also loves to eat high fat fish and is a whole lot better at catching it than these guys. If you guys haven't guessed it already, I am talking about us humans. It is no surprise that we are also a big fan of seafood, and we have giant boats and industrial-sized nets to be able to catch a ton of fish at once. So unfortunately, we were overfishing all of these areas and leaving not enough for these Steller sea lions. But luckily, because this is a human-caused problem, it means that we have human solutions. Since then, in certain areas like the western population, Steller sea lions are now labeled as an endangered species, so it is pretty illegal to get up and close to them and do things like hunt them and stuff like that, which is a great first step. You can also look out for things like sustainable seafood if you are a fan of seafood. The next time you go to a grocery store or a restaurant, you can look out for something like the ocean-wise symbol, which is a fish in the shape of an O with a little tail at the end. If you're from the States, it'll most likely be the MSC symbol, but both of these organizations ensure that your seafood was caught sustainably and responsibly with non-invasive fishing techniques, and we're also making sure that we leave enough fish for all of the animals like Steller sea lions that depend on them. So that is one way that you guys can help. Another way you guys can help is something that all of you guys have actually already done, and that's just by coming to the Vancouver Aquarium and coming to this program specifically. Education is always going to be the first step in these kind of situations, and all of you guys have already done that by coming here to the program, as well as watching our trainers work with these Steller sea lions, so give yourselves a pat on the back. If you guys would like to take it one step further, you can use your voice and talk to people like your policymakers or government agencies and tell them you want to see more sustainable seafood or marine protected areas so these guys can live their lives with little to no human interference. But that is all I have for you guys for the program today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to let me or some of the trainers know if they are sticking around. But if not, I'd like to thank you all for joining today, and I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day.